Welcome to Discovering. Tonight we'll visit with Roger Newhouse, who's an expert at turning this into this.
Walleyes, that's my specialty. You know, I carve a lot of other freshwater fish, but the walleye, being from Lake Ogibic, is the one that I love to carve the most.
Then, spring is hopefully not too far around the corner, but there is still time for a bit of ice fishing. That's all tonight right here on Discovering.
The secret streams that flow beneath the cliffs of colored stone, forests thick and healthy with birch and pine and oak, surrounded by the greatest lakes this world has ever known. The black bear's awesome presence as he roams the hills and fields, call of the timber wolf, the loon's lonesome trill, the eagle soaring high above, the trout lies deep and still. These are what I treasure, the only way I measure feelings that I have for this fine land. There is so much to discover when you're a long-time lover of northern Michigan.
Does each of us have some hidden talent? Something we suddenly find out we're a natural at? We all have ideas floating around in our heads of something we'd like to try. Maybe it's painting or photography or playing the guitar. Or in the case of Roger Newhouse, pick up a piece of wood and turn it into an award-winning carving.
I started my carving career in the year 2000, and prior to that I went to a couple local wood carving shows, and I was enamored by the fish carvings there, and being raised at Lake Ogibic and seeing those fish, it just sparked an interest in me. And I went a second year to the show, and then that really got me fired up to start my carving career. Carving walleye mostly, because being from Lake Ogibic, I've developed that as my specialty, and I carve most other freshwater fish. When I begin a carving, I like to have a real fish so I can make a real pattern off it. And on this particular carving, it's a perch. It's a 14-inch perch I caught at Lake Ogibic, my hometown. So I'll catch a fish, I'll make a pattern, I'll make a side view, and I make a top view, and then I pattern out all the fins on the particular fish. Then I'll take a block of wood like this, and I'll trace this pattern onto the side of the wood. Then I also take a top view of the fish, and I trace this on top of the fish. Now I'll go to the bandsaw, and I'll rough both sides out. In the beginning, I took a ride to Lake Ogibic, and I got some basswood logs and brought them home, and then I went and caught some fish locally, some walleyes, and I made myself some patterns. I took the wood and the fish and married those two together and did my first walleye, and it turned out pretty decent. I'm gluing the sides of the fish back on that I just carved, and because I'll have to make another cut, I have to cut out the side view of the fish, so I have to glue this top view back on so I can finish my work on the bandsaw so I can get a roughed out fish body. 13 months after I began my carving career, I went to the World Fish Carving Championship held in Springfield, Illinois. It's a biannual event. I drove down to the affair. I had my first 8 carvings I had just made, and I was pondering as to whether or not I should put them in a show. So I went ahead and entered the intermediate division, and after the judging, I found out I won 8 world ribbons, including a best in the world for a natural carving that I did. So that was early inspiration for me to keep on going. For this perch I'm working on, I'm using basswood, and basswood is one of the finest woods there are for wood carving because of its ability to take the detail. So a lot of carvers, no matter if they're doing fish or somebody else, use basswood. And it's plentiful to our area, so we're lucky. Now you have a fish body that is ready to be roughed out with my power carver. So the first thing I want to do is I want to find the center line of this fish. And I want to do that because if I don't find it, the fish carving is not going to work out. Now I'll come over to my power carver and I'll start shaping the fish. After I have my bandsaw rough out, and then I start to take my roughed out fish body and carve it. To me, it's kind of an instinct that I do it. I just have a feeling that, you know, after seeing a lot of fish over the years, I have a pretty good mindset on what that fish body should look like. So a lot of it is just intuition. You know, if it's a strange fish that I haven't carved before, well then I'll take more detail off of a real fish that I may have laying on the table. And there you have the beginning of a roughed out fish body. So I'll do the other three sides exactly like it. After I get all four sides rounded off, then I take a piece of a sanding drum like this. This happens to be 50 weight. And I fold it in half, and then I start rubbing this fish up and down. I want it to get it just smooth as can be, but it takes a little while to do this, and I know there's probably speedier ways you can do it with sanding drums and stuff like that, but you know, I prefer to do it in the old-fashioned way by hand, and I like to feel my work when I get done, you know. So I don't know, you put a little more sweat into it, and I guess by doing that, you love your fish a little bit more when you're done, because you know how much work you put into that. And then once I get it roughed out to how I feel it should look, then I'll start the detail process. Now, in the meantime, in addition to having a pattern for the top and side view, you also need a pattern for your fins off of, and I take those off of a real fish. Now this is a perch I'm working on. It'll be a treated perch on this side, and then I'll detail it out and paint it on this side. So the fins that I use, I make patterns off of real fish, and then just like I do the fish body. And these should fit in like this. There's your spiny dorsal fin. Here's your fleshy dorsal fin, and here's your anal fin. So I still have to carve the fins, the pectoral fins, and the two belly fins, or the pelvic fins. So this has been detailed out from this stage to this stage right here. This is basswood as well. This particular black crappie I'm working on, I drew some parallel lines on this fish for a reason, because now when I start scale tipping this fish, when I start off on this line and get back to this line, I want all of the scales to line up, because if I don't have these vertical lines on here, and you start wandering with your scale tips, by the time you get to the tail, you have to sand it all off and start over. So what I do is I just start on the line like this. I press down, I draw back a little bit. I press down, I draw back a little bit. The scales on the side of the fish, in the middle of the fish, are the largest scales. As you scale tip a fish and you go toward the tail, or if you go toward the head, or if you come up the side toward the top of the fish, or if you come from the side of the fish down to the mid part of the belly of the fish, the scales get smaller. And that's where you can use those descending scale tips. And the more detail and the more accuracy that you can put in a fish, not just by carving, but by scaling it, you'll have a lot nicer outcome when you're done. So I push down on the scale tip a little bit and I pull it back, and that raises that scale up. You know, and if this scale doesn't look exactly right, I can go back and I can just touch it up again. And I'll just scale tip down to here on the belly, change my tip. I can start here and I can go down like this. You see how my scale tips, my scales, I can work those in a pattern to match up with the ones I just did here. So, and then you would go with smaller scales beyond that. You could go another row here, I guess, but, and then you would go with a smaller scale tip to finish it off. All the fins have fin rays except for maybe some of the spiny dorsal fins. So on this particular crappie, I've got a tail. I got to burn fin rays in like this. So I'll start out here, and then I'll come right down like this. And you don't have to be in a hurry. A lot of people say, I don't have the patience to do that. And I didn't have the patience in the beginning either. But over 15 years, I learned a little bit about patience. I try to stay focused, and you do both sides of the tail, burning fin rays in when it's ready to detail, just like the one I'm doing here. And you can go out and get the next one over here and come down. You also have a set of pectoral fins, one on each side here, that'll stick out like this. And then you also have a set of pelvic fins that'll stick out on the bottom. I haven't carved the fin sockets yet on this, but you also have to detail. You have to detail the fins out. So I like to use a ball. You want to make sure you have a center line because you don't want to carve the fin all the way through on one side. So on this particular fin, I'm going to cup this side of the fin. And here you have a fin that's in the process of being detailed. I still have to clean this fin up, and I still have to carve in fin rays, and this is just another step in the operation that has to be done. What I love the most about carving, especially fish, I grew up on Lake Ogibic, catching fish when I was 5 years old, mostly walleyes. So, years later, I still love to fish walleyes. I still go to Lake Ogibic every year, and I used walleyes. That's my specialty. I carve a lot of other freshwater fish, but the walleye, being from Lake Ogibic, is the one that I love to carve the most. Carving is a lot like a lot of other areas of artwork. In my case anyway, when I decide to carve something, there's a switch inside of me that goes on. And then I'll brainstorm a carving. And like somebody asked Ben Franklin one time, where do you get all your ideas for your inventions? And he said, I just pluck them out of the air. And I said, that's pretty much the same with me, but I'm not comparing myself to Ben Franklin. It's kind of the same with me with artwork. And I know once I start a piece, once I brainstorm a carving, and once I get an idea of what I want to do, there's this switch of energy is turned on to me, and it's with me till the end of the carving. Now I can stop that carving in the middle and turn my back on it, and then the switch goes off. But once I go back to what I'm doing, the switch goes on again. And that's been true with all of my carvings from the beginning. I learned to create different things. I don't ever do two pieces alike. All of my pieces are individual. I get to come in my shop, especially in the winter when the weather can be anything. I can sit out here in my t-shirt and carve. The other thing I've learned a great deal about carving is how to be patient. There's a lot of people that see my work, the first thing they tell me is that I can't do that because I have no patience. But I tell them I didn't have any patience when I began either, and I had to learn patience. And then they also ask me, well, you must be able to knock a carving out really quick now. You've been at it for about 15 years. And I respond by saying, no, you know what? Actually, it takes me longer to do a carving now than it did in the beginning because I put more detail in it. A lot of people ask me if they can purchase my carvings, but I decline most of them because I didn't really start carving to do it as a business. I started to do it as a hobby. A lot of times when I get a carving ready or I finish a carving, I go to the local Veterans Hospital in Iron Mountain. I'm an Army veteran myself, and I kind of bring it in, and it's like show and tell to the veterans. Sometimes I'll bring a whole table full of my carvings in to display them there, and I'll spend the whole day there. And they just seem to be, they're more excited about my carvings than I am at the time, but it's just nice to see that other vets are enjoying my work, and I'm hoping sometime I can inspire, you know, one or two of those to maybe try their hand at it as well. And I always offer them free lessons if they ever want to try to learn how to carve. I prefer donating my work as to selling it because I never did this, I never wanted this to be a job. I wanted this to be a pleasure, and that's the way it is.
I believe we all have a wealth of hidden talents stored up inside of us. Gifts just waiting to be opened.
It must have been all bottled up inside you, this talent, like a genie with a cork in it, and then all of a sudden out pops the cork and out comes all of this carving. And I said, you know, ma'am, I can't explain it any better. That's exactly what happened.
Pick up a block of wood or a paintbrush or a camera. Pop the cork and see what comes out. Well, spring is right around the corner. Or not. At least for a while, you'll need to drill a hole in the ice before you can fish. My son Jordan and his buddy Cray spent the day on Little Bay De Noc doing just that. And they brought along the camera.
Work for that one, didn't you?
Yep. Well, there's a little fish on the bay for you right there. Had to work for this one, but that's what it's all about.
Nice slot fish.
Beautiful.
We're out here fishing about 32 feet of water, fishing on a break here, running big sucker minnows for big Bay De Noc walleyes. That's how it's done right there. Get you some. come to Little Bay De Noc right there. You never know what you're gonna catch.
Yeah, we come out this morning, set up in the dark, and put our tip-ups out. Been pretty slow in the shack jigging, but ended up getting a nice eater on the tip-up here a little later in the day. Hopefully the bite picks up a little bit.
That's why you make the trip.
Nice fish.
Well, that's it for tonight. If you'd like to keep tabs on what's coming up on Discovering or see where we've been, you can join us on Facebook or go to 906outdoors.com. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week right here on Discovering.